My brother Robert came to visit me from Chicago and found my house empty, completely empty. No furniture, no food in the pantry, nothing. He looked at me with eyes full of tears and asked, "Sister, why are you starving if you have a retirement income of $8,000 a month?" Before I could answer, Michael came out of his room. He crossed his arms and declared with a proud smile, "I give all her money to my wife. She manages it better than Mom." The silence that followed was deafening. Robert stood motionless, staring at my son as if he were a stranger. Then, very slowly, he took off his coat, folded it calmly, and what he did next left Michael completely paralyzed. But to understand how we got to that moment, I must tell you my story from the beginning. My name is Emily, and I am 69 years old. All my life, I worked as a nurse at the City General Hospital. It was 42 years of night shifts of emergencies that kept me awake, of patients crying in my arms. 42 years of giving my life to save other lives. My husband Richard died 11 years ago from a massive heart attack. It was so sudden that there was no time for goodbyes. That morning, before leaving for work, he kissed me on the forehead and said, "I love you, Emily." I never imagined those would be his last words. The pain of losing him was so deep, I thought I would not survive. But I had a reason to keep going. Michael, our only son, he became the center of my universe. Everything I did, every extra hour I worked, every sacrifice I made was for him, so that he would have a good education, so that he would lack nothing, so that he would fulfill his dreams. Michael grew up being a happy and affectionate child. I remember when he was 8 years old and would wait up for me after my night shifts to give me a hug. "Mom, you are the best nurse in the world." He would tell me with that sweet voice that melted my heart. I graduated him from university with honors. He studied business administration, and I was so proud of him. I attended his graduation ceremony in my hospital uniform because I came straight from an 18-hour shift. But I did not care. Seeing my son receive that diploma was my greatest reward. Later, he got a good job at a logistics company. Everything seemed perfect. My son was a successful man, responsible, with a future. Or at least, that is what I thought. 3 years ago, Michael met Jessica at a business conference. She worked in the marketing department of a competitor company. She was an elegant woman, always impeccably dressed, with that type of confidence that commands respect. When Michael introduced her to me, I noticed something in her eyes that I could not decipher at that moment. A calculating coldness behind her perfect smile. "Nice to meet you, Emily. she told me with a soft voice while extending her hand. Michael has spoken a lot about you. She was wearing an ivory dress that probably cost more than my monthly nurse salary. I tried to be kind to give her the benefit of the doubt. After all, she was the woman who had conquered my son's heart. They got married 6 months later in a small but elegant ceremony. I paid for half the wedding with my savings because I wanted Michael to have the special day he deserved. Jessica had no close family. She said her parents had passed away and she was an only child. That made me feel sorry for her. I thought maybe her coldness was just a shell to protect herself from loneliness. I tried to get closer to be the mother she never had. The first few months seemed happy. Michael came to visit me every week. Sometimes he brought Jessica. We shared Sunday lunch and he told me about his work, his plans, his dreams. "Mom, soon I'm going to give you grandchildren," he promised me one afternoon while helping me wash the dishes. "And you will be the most spoiling grandmother in the world." My heart filled with hope. Life went on, and I had so much to live for. But then, 14 months ago, everything changed. Michael lost his job. The company where he worked closed operations in our city and moved everything to another region. He arrived at my house that afternoon with a broken face, eyes red from crying. "Mom, they fired me," he told me with a broken voice. "I do not know what I'm going to do. I have debts, the rent for the apartment, Jessica's expenses." I hugged him like when he was a child and told him, "Calm down, my love. I am here. We will get through this together." And that was how my ordeal began. Although at that moment I called it motherly love. Michael and Jessica moved into my house 2 weeks after he lost his job. "It will only be temporary, Mom," Michael assured me while they brought in their suitcases. "Until I get another job and we can stabilize." I was happy to help them after all. What else was my pension of $8,000 a month for if not to support my son in difficult times? My house had 3 bedrooms, so there was enough space. I gave them the master bedroom, the one that had been mine and Richard's. I moved into the smallest one. "You are young and need space," I told them with a smile. Jessica thanked me with a kiss on the cheek, but there was something in that gesture that felt empty, mechanical, as if she were acting for an invisible audience. The first few days were pleasant. We cooked together. I taught Jessica some traditional recipes that Michael had loved since he was a child. She seemed interested, took notes, asked me questions. "Emily, you are so generous," she would tell me while stirring the pot. "Not just any mother would do what you do for her son." Those words filled me with pride. I thought we were finally building a mother and daughter relationship. But there were small details that began to make me uncomfortable. Jessica checked the kitchen cabinets and made comments about what was missing. "We should buy new dishes. This one is very old," she said, pointing to the plates Richard had given me on our 10th anniversary. Or she would enter my room without knocking, saying she needed something from the closet that they had mistakenly left there. Michael spent his days sending resumes and going to interviews. I gave him money for gas so he could dress well so he could pay for a coffee while waiting. "Thanks," Mom would say, taking the bills. "I promise I will pay you back everything when I find a job." Weeks passed, and the interviews yielded no results. Michael's frustration was evident. He came home quieter every day, more distant. Jessica became the one who spoke for both of them. "Emily, Michael is very stressed," she explained to me with a soft voice. "The constant rejection is affecting him emotionally. He needs to feel that he can still provide for his family." Then she suggested something that at that moment seemed reasonable to me. "Why do you not give Michael your debit card? That way he can handle the household expenses and feel useful while looking for a job." I hesitated for a moment. It was my money, my pension earned with 42 years of work. But I looked at my son sitting on the sofa with a lost gaze, and my heart broke. I wanted to help him recover his dignity. "It is fine," I said finally. "Michael can manage the money while he is here." I gave him my card and explained my PIN code. "Use what you need, son. For food, for your expenses, for whatever." Michael hugged me tight, and for the first time in weeks, I saw a smile on his face. "Thanks, Mom. You do not know what this means to me." Jessica also smiled, but her smile was different. There was a gleam in her eyes that I did not know how to interpret. Then now, I know it was the gleam of victory. The first few weeks, everything seemed normal. Michael went to the supermarket and brought the groceries. He paid the house bills on time. He even gave me $100 for my personal expenses. "Here, Mom, so you can buy yourself something nice," he told me with affection. I felt relieved. My son was responsible. He was managing the money well. But then the subtle changes began. The supermarket purchases started to get smaller. "Everything is very expensive, Mom," Michael explained. "We have to economize until I get a job." It made sense, so I did not question it. We stopped buying meat and fresh fish. Fruits disappeared from the pantry. "Canned vegetables are cheaper and last longer," Jessica said while preparing dinner. I nodded, trying to be understanding with the situation. But something strange was happening. While we ate beans and rice, Jessica always had bags from expensive stores in her room. One day, I saw her trying on an emerald dress that surely cost several hundred. A friend gave it to me. She told me quickly when she noticed I was watching her. It did not fit her anymore, and she knew it was my size. Michael also started wearing new clothes shoes that shined brandame shirts, a watch I did not remember seeing on him before. A friend lent them to me for the interviews. He explained when I asked, "One has to look good to get a job." His explanations always sounded logical, reasonable. I wanted to believe him. I needed to believe him. 3 months passed, and Michael still did not get a job. One day, I tried to check my bank account online to see how much money was left, but the password had been changed. "Michael, He came to the living room with a calm expression. Yes, Mom. I changed the password for security. There's a lot of fraud now. He gave me a new password, but when I tried to use it, it did not work either. Let me do it, Mom, he said, taking my phone from my hands. You do not understand these technology things. Well, I will take care of it. And so slowly, I was losing access to my own money, to my own life. The following months were like falling into a dark well from which I could not get out. Every day was a little worse than the previous one, but the changes were so gradual that I did not realize how deep I had fallen until it was too late. Michael and Jessica had completely appropriated my house, my money, my life, and I, like a fool, kept justifying each of their actions because they were my family, because Michael was my son.
Because a mother's love knows no limits, right? But I was about to discover that there are loves that destroy you while you smile and say thank you. One day, I arrived in the living room and noticed the sofa was missing.
The beautiful burgundy velvet sofa that Richard and I had bought on our 20th anniversary. Where is the sofa? I asked, confused. Jessica was painting her nails in the dining room. She did not even look up. We sold it, she replied naturally. It was very old and worn out. Besides, we needed the money for more important things. My heart accelerated. More important things. What things? Michael appeared from the kitchen with a beer in his hand. Mom, do not worry about those details. I take care of everything. But I was worried. That sofa had memories, history, meaning. Michael, that sofa belonged to your father and me. You had no right to sell it without consulting me. My son looked at me with an expression I had never seen on him before. Cold, distant. Mom, you are living in the past. They are just material things. Dad is no longer here, and clinging to old furniture is not going to bring him back. His words hurt me more than a slap. I tried to protest, but Jessica intervened with a sweet voice. Emily, Michael is right. You need to let go of the past and think about the future. Besides, we also live here and have the right to make decisions about the home, right? In my own house. I wanted to scream at them that it was my house, my money, my memories. But the words stayed trapped in my throat. I was afraid. Afraid that if I confronted them, they would leave and leave me completely alone. And loneliness terrified me more than anything in the world. So I swallowed my tears, nodded, and went to my room, feeling like a stranger in my own home. The following week, the dining table disappeared. Then the antique lamps I had inherited from my mother. Then the living room television. Although strangely, they had a new giant screen one in their room. I got it on sale. Michael explained when I asked. Every time I objected to something, the answer was the same. Mom, trust me. I know what I am doing. But I no longer trusted. I started having nightmares where my house was completely empty and I walked through rooms that echoed with every step. The worst part is that those nightmares were becoming reality. My nutrition also worsened drastically. The food portions became smaller and smaller. Mom, at your age, you do not need to eat so much. Jessica would tell me while serving me barely half a cup of rice and a few watery beans. Besides, didn't you want to lose weight? I am doing you a favor. I did not want to lose weight. I had a healthy weight for my age and build. But Michael supported his wife in everything. Jessica studied nutrition in an online course. He informed me with pride. She knows what is best for you. She had not studied nutrition. I would discover that later. It was just another lie in a growing mountain of lies. While I ate rice and beans once a day, they ordered takeout almost every night. The smell of pizza burgers, Chinese food filled the house and made my stomach ache with hunger. It is just that we are younger and need more energy, Jessica explained without the slightest trace of shame on her face. I started losing weight quickly. My clothes hung loose on me. I looked in the mirror and barely recognized the gaunt woman staring back at me. I had deep, dark circles, pale skin, trembling hands. My friends from the hospital, the few who still visited me, were worried. Emily, are you sick? Susan asked me. My best friend for 30 years. You look very thin. Are you eating well? I opened my mouth to tell her the truth to ask for help. But at that moment, Jessica entered the living room with a radiant smile. Emily is perfectly fine. She's just on a healthy diet. Right, mother-in-law? She looked at me with eyes that promised consequences if I said anything different. I nodded weakly. Yes, I am fine. Just taking care of myself a little. Susan did not seem convinced, but she did not insist. When she left, I felt lonelier than ever. One day, I tried to take money from the ATM with the card Michael had returned to me for emergencies. I needed to buy my blood pressure medication. The machine rejected the transaction. Insufficient funds. Impossible. It was the middle of the month. There should be at least $4,000 in the account. I tried again. The same message. With trembling hands, I asked for the printed balance. The figure on the paper left me breathless. $37.50. $37 out of a pension of $8,000 a month. Where was the rest? I arrived home with the crumpled paper in my hand and looked for Michael. He was on the patio talking on the phone, laughing at something when he saw me. He cut the call quickly. Michael, I need to talk to you. I told him with a trembling voice, showing him the bank paper. There are only $37 left in my account. Where is my money? His expression changed from surprise to annoyance in a second. Mom, did you go to the bank without telling me? We had already talked about this. I handled the money so you do not worry. But I need to know where it is. It is $8,000 and only $37 are left. What was it all spent on? Michael sighed, as if he were dealing with a whimsical child. On food, on bills, on house expenses. Do you think everything is free? Electricity, water, gas, internet. Everything costs money. Mom, but that could not cost almost $8,000. The utility bills totaled a maximum of $500 a month, and the other $7,500. Michael, the bills do not add up to more than $500. I insisted, trying to stay calm, although my heart was beating hard. Where are the other $7,500? My son looked at me with an expression of annoyance that froze my blood. Mom, we also have to pay for food, gas, to go to interviews, clothes to look presentable. Or do you want me to go look for a job in rags? His tone was defensive, almost aggressive. He had never spoken to me like that. But son, I am not seeing that food. We barely have rice and beans in the house, and you have been here 6 months without getting a job. Don't you think it is time we look for another solution? The words came out of my mouth before I could stop them. I saw how Michael's face darkened. Jessica appeared at that moment as if she had been listening behind the door. Another solution, Jessica repeated with a dangerously soft voice. What are you insinuating, Emily? That you want to kick us out to the street, your own son? Her words sounded hurt, but her eyes shone with something darker. Malice. Calculation. No, that is not it. I rushed to explain. I just want to understand what is happening with my money. I have the right to know. Michael took a step towards me. You have the right, he said slowly. But you also have the obligation to help your family, or are we not your family anymore? After everything I did for you, after taking care of you, when Dad died, now you are going to deny me your support. His argument was absurd. He had not taken care of me when Richard died. I had been the one who took care of herself alone, who worked double shifts not to think about the pain, who kept going because I had to be strong. But I said nothing. I stood there, holding that bank paper as if it were evidence in a trial where I was the accused. Michael is right, added Jessica, approaching her husband and taking him by the arm. You are being selfish, Emily. We are going through a difficult time,
And instead of supporting us, you are questioning us. Do you know what that does to Michael? You are hurting him emotionally. The word selfish resonated in my head like a bell.
Me selfish I, who had given my whole life to my son, who paid for his college, who supported him in every decision, who opened my house and gave him total access to my money. I was the selfish one. Tears began to roll down my cheeks. I am sorry, I whispered. I did not mean to. I am just confused. Michael sighed and patted me on the shoulder, as one comforts a dog. It is okay, Mom. I know you are old and have a hard time understanding how things work now. That is why it is better that I take care of everything. You just rest and do not worry about the money. I went to my room feeling small, ashamed, guilty. They had made me feel that I was the problem. The following weeks were even worse. I realized I no longer had control over anything in my own life. I could not access my bank account. I could not buy even a pack of cookies without asking for permission. Michael controlled every penny. One day, I asked him for $20 to buy a birthday gift for Susan. $20, he repeated as if I had asked for a fortune. Mom, we do not have money for unnecessary expenses. Susan will understand, but it was not unnecessary for me. Susan had been my friend for 30 years. She had been by my side when Richard died. She deserved at least a birthday gift. Please, Michael, just $20. My son looked at me with that expression of exhaustion that was becoming more frequent. No, Mom. And do not insist, because you are stressing me out. Do you know how hard it is for me to be without a job? And on top of that, I have to deal with your whims. I stopped seeing my friends, not because I did not want to, but because I was ashamed for them to see me like this. Then gone, without a penny in my pocket. What was I going to tell them? That my own son had taken everything from me. When Susan called, I made up excuses. I am tired. I do not feel well. Another time, eventually, she stopped calling so much. I was isolating myself from the world, and I did not even realize that was exactly what Michael and Jessica wanted. A victim without witnesses is easier to control. The house was getting emptier. The framed photographs disappeared from the walls. I sold them on an app, Jessica explained. Antique frames are in fashion and they paid well. They were photos of my wedding, of Michael's baptism of family. Christmases, irreplaceable memories reduced to cash that I never saw. They took the Persian rugs I had inherited from my grandmother. They were full of dust mites. That was the excuse. The paintings Richard had painted as a hobby took up too much space. Every object that disappeared took with it a piece of my history, of my identity. I was being erased from my own life, one object at a time. My health was deteriorating visibly in addition to the weight loss. I began to have constant dizziness. My blood pressure medication had run out weeks ago and I had no money to buy more. Michael, I need to go to the doctor. I told him one morning after almost fainting in the bathroom. I feel very weak. My son did not even look up from his cell phone. Doctors are very expensive. Mom, besides you, are a nurse. You can take care of yourself. It was a twisted logic. Yes, I was a nurse, but I was retired and sick. I needed professional medical attention. But my medication, I tried to explain. I already told you there is no money for that. He cut me off with a final tone. Learn to manage yourself better. Manage myself. I did not have access to a single penny. How was I going to manage what I did not have? One night, I woke up with my stomach twisting with hunger. I had not eaten anything all day except a little hard bread in the morning. I got up and went to the kitchen, hoping to find something, anything. The pantry was practically empty. There was only a can of tuna and a package of crackers. I took the can with trembling hands and looked for the can opener. I was about to open it when I heard Jessica's voice behind me. "What are you doing?" I was so startled, I almost dropped the can. "I am hungry," I said, with a voice barely audible. Jessica took the can from my hands. "This is for Michael's lunch tomorrow. He needs protein to stay strong during interviews. You already had dinner." But I had not had dinner. They had ordered Chinese food and had not offered me anything. I stood there watching as Jessica put the can in a high cabinet where I could not reach, and I felt like a prisoner in my own house, because that was exactly what I was, a prisoner. The days became a haze of hunger, weakness, and despair. I lost track of time. How long had Michael and Jessica been living with me? 6 months, 8, a year? I did not know. Everything mixed in my mind, confused by malnutrition. The only thing I knew for sure was that I was losing the will to fight. Maybe they were right. Maybe I was just a useless old woman who did not understand how the modern world worked. Maybe I deserved this. Those dark thoughts took over me more frequently. I was giving up on myself. But then something happened that would change everything. My brother Robert decided to pay me a surprise visit from Chicago. Robert and I had always been close despite the distance. He had moved to Chicago 15 years ago for work and had built his life there, but we always kept in touch. We talked on the phone at least once a month, although I must admit that in recent months I had avoided his calls. I did not want him to hear my weak voice, to ask me questions I did not know how to answer. When I did not answer, he left messages. "Sister, are you okay? You have me worried. Call me." But I never returned the calls. Michael was always nearby, listening, controlling. I did not dare say anything that might upset him. Robert tried to communicate with Michael directly. "Your uncle is asking about you," my son told me with a bored tone after hanging up. I told him, "You are fine, just busy." But Robert was not stupid. My younger brother, 5 years younger than me, had always been sharp. He worked as an accountant at a major firm and had that ability to detect when numbers did not add up. And something in this whole situation was not adding up for him. After 2 months without being able to speak to me directly, Robert made a decision without telling anyone. He bought a plane ticket and came to visit me. When he knocked on the door that Thursday afternoon, I was lying in my room, too weak to get up. Michael opened the door and found him standing there with a small suitcase and a determined expression. "Uncle Robert." I heard Michael's surprised voice from the living room. "What are you doing here?" "I came to see my sister," Robert replied with a firm voice. "Is she home?" There was an awkward silence. I wanted to get up, go greet him, but my body did not respond. I had spent 3 days eating practically nothing, and the dizziness was constant. Yes, she is here, but she is resting. Michael said, "She's been a little delicate lately." Then, "Perfect. I came at the right time." Robert replied, and I heard his footsteps entering the house. "Which room is she in?" Michael tried to stop him, but my brother was already walking down the hallway opening doors. When he opened the door to my room and saw me, his face transformed completely. I saw the shock, the horror, the disbelief in his eyes. "Emily," he whispered, as if he could not believe that the skeletal woman lying in that bed was his sister. I sat up with difficulty. "Robert." I tried to smile. What a surprise. But my voice came out broken, barely a whisper. My brother entered the room and knelt beside my bed. He took my hand, and I could see his eyes filling with tears as he felt how thin I was, how fragile my bones were under my skin. "My God, sister, what happened to you?" he asked with a trembling voice. You are malnourished. You look." He did not finish the sentence, but we both knew what he was going to say. I looked like a terminal patient. I looked like someone on the verge of death. "I am fine," I lied reflexively. "I have just been a little sick." Robert shook his head slowly without letting go of my hand. "No, Emily. This is not being a little sick. This is serious. Very serious." He stood up and left the room. I followed him with my gaze, feeling a mixture of relief and terror. Robert had come. Someone had finally come. My brother walked through the house, and I could hear his footsteps, his stifled exclamations of surprise. When he returned to my room, his expression was one of complete disbelief. "Emily, where is your furniture? Your house is practically empty. There is no sofa in the living room. There is no table in the dining room. The walls are bare. What happened here?" Michael appeared at the door with Jessica glued to his side. "Uncle, we are in a renovation process," he explained with a soft voice. That voice he used when he wanted to sound reasonable. "We sold some old furniture to buy more modern things later." Robert turned to him with a look I had never seen on him. "Renovation. Your mother is lying on a mattress without sheets in a room without heating, and you call this renovation indeed. My bed only had a mattress with a thin blanket. I did not even have a pillow. I had been sleeping with a towel rolled under my head." "Uncle, you are exaggerating," Michael said, but his voice sounded less sure. Robert ignored him. He turned to me. "Sister, when was the last time you ate?" The question took me by surprise. "Me. This morning I lied, but Robert knew me too well." He walked to the kitchen, and I heard him open the pantry, the refrigerator. He returned with his face red from contained anger. "There is no food in this house, Emily. Absolutely nothing, just a can of tuna and a package of expired crackers. How have you been eating? I could not answer. Tears began to roll down my cheeks. Robert knelt beside me again, and with a very soft voice, as if speaking to someone injured, he asked, "Sister, why are you starving? You have a pension of $8,000 a month. You should be living comfortably. Where is your money?" Before I could answer, Michael came out of his room. He must have been listening to the whole conversation. He crossed his arms, and with an expression mixing pride and defiance, he declared loud and clear, "I give all her money to my wife. He manages it better than Mom. Mom is old and does not understand modern finances. Jessica has an investment plan to grow that money." It is for everyone's good. The silence that followed was absolute. Robert stood completely still, looking at Michael, as if he had just confessed a crime. I felt like I had been doused with ice water. My son had admitted with pride that he was taking all my money. Jessica appeared next to Michael, taking him by the arm, with a satisfied expression. "It is true, Uncle Robert. I am investing Emily's money intelligently. She gave it to us voluntarily for us to manage." Robert stood up very slowly. I saw how his jaw tensed, how his hands closed into fists, but when he spoke, his voice was dangerously calm. "So, you give all her money to your wife?" he repeated, looking Michael directly in the eyes. "And your mother is here dying of hunger in her own house, while you and your wife keep her entire pension." "It is not how it sounds, Uncle," Michael started to say, but Robert raised a hand to silence him. "Shut up. I do not want to hear your excuses." He turned to Jessica. "And you say you are investing my sister's money. In what exactly? Because from what I see, it is not in food. It is not in medication. It is not in keeping this house in decent conditions." Jessica opened her mouth to answer, but Robert continued. "In fact, I want to see those supposed investments. I want to see bank statements, documents, proof of where every penny of the $8,000 a month my sister receives is, and I want to see them now." Michael and Jessica exchanged a quick glance, and in that moment, I knew the truth. There were no investments. There was no financial plan. There was only theft, abuse, and manipulation. My brother knew it too. I saw how his expression went from controlled anger to something much colder and calculated. Robert took off his coat very slowly, folded it carefully, and placed it on my bed. Then he took his cell phone out of his pocket and dialed a number. "Henry," he said when someone answered. "This is Robert. I need you to come immediately to my sister Emily's house. Bring your recorder and your camera, and if you can bring a doctor too." Henry was our family lawyer for years, a serious man, meticulous, who had handled our parents' will and some legal matters for me and Robert. I saw Michael turn pale. "Uncle, what are you doing?" he asked with a sharp voice. "This is a private family matter." Robert ended the call and turned to Michael with a smile that did not reach his eyes. "You are right, Michael. It is a family matter, a very serious family matter, called elder financial abuse. And when Henry gets here, we are going to document every penny you have stolen, every piece of furniture you have sold, every meal you denied your mother, everything." The word stolen hung in the air like an accusation. Michael tried to protest. Jessica tried to explain, but Robert was no longer listening to them. He sat on the edge of my bed and took my hand. "Sister," he said with a soft voice, "this is over. Today, it all ends." Michael started pacing the room, running his hands through his hair nervously. "Uncle Robert, I think you are misinterpreting the whole situation," he said with a trembling voice. "Mom gave us permission to manage her money. She wanted to help us. Tell him. Mom, tell him you agreed with everything." All eyes turned to me. I felt the weight of that moment, the importance of what I was about to say. For months, I had justified. I had forgiven. I had remained silent. But as I looked into my son's pleading eyes and then into my brother's firm and loving eyes, something broke inside me. Something I had been holding back for too long. "I gave you my card for temporary expenses," I said with a weak but clear voice. "I did not give you permission to empty my account every month. I did not give you permission to sell my furniture. I did not give you permission to let me starve in my own house." The words came out like a torrent. I could no longer stop. "I gave you my card because you were my son and you were in trouble. Because I trusted you. Because I never imagined you would do this to me." My voice broke, but I continued. "I changed my entire life for you, Michael. I worked double shifts to pay for your college. I gave up having a social life to be with you when you were a child. I gave you everything I had, everything I was. And you paid me back by stealing my dignity." Michael opened his mouth, but no words came out. Jessica took a step forward. "Emily, you are confused. Age sometimes makes us remember things incorrectly." But Robert interrupted her with a cutting voice.
Do not treat her as senile. My sister is perfectly lucid, and you just heard her testimony." Robert stood up and walked towards Michael. "While we wait for Henry, we are going to do a little exercise. You say Jessica is investing your mother's money. Fine, show me."
"Open your phone and show me the investment apps, the statements, the certificates, whatever." Michael took a step back. "I do not have to show you anything. You are not the police." "You are right. I am not the police," Robert replied with chilling calm. "But they will arrive soon if you do not cooperate, because what you have done to your mother is not only immoral, it is illegal. It is called financial exploitation of the elderly, and it is a federal crime with penalties of up to 10 years in prison." I saw the color completely disappear from Michael's face. Jessica, on the other hand, maintained her composure, although I could see a glint of panic in her eyes. "This is ridiculous," Jessica said with a tense voice. "We have not committed any crime. Michael is Emily's son. Children have the right to receive help from their parents." "Help?" "Yes," Robert replied. "Theft, no." There is a very clear difference between asking for help and appropriating every penny your mother-in-law receives while leaving her without food and without medication. He turned to me. "Sister, when was the last time you took your blood pressure medication?" "Almost 2 months ago," I admitted. "Michael said there was no money to buy them." Robert closed his eyes for a moment, as if containing an explosion of fury. There was no money for medications that cost $30 a month, but there was money for... He looked around the empty room. For what exactly? "Where's the money, Michael?" My son slumped to the floor, sitting against the wall with his hands covering his face. "We spent it," he murmured. "You spent it," Robert repeated. $8,000 a month for how many months, Emily?" 14 months, I answered. "They have lived here 14 months. Robert took out his phone and quickly made the calculation. $112,000. You spent $112,000 of your mother's money in 14 months on what Michael did not answer. It was Jessica who spoke, and for the first time since I met her, her voice sounded genuinely scared. "We had expenses. The rent for the apartment we still had, the first year credit card debts, the car." "What apartment?" Robert asked. "Michael and Jessica live here. We were still paying the contract for the previous apartment." Jessica explained quickly. "We moved before the lease ended, and we had to keep paying until it expired." Robert looked at her with disbelief. "And it did not occur to you to sublet to look for someone to occupy the space? Or was it just more convenient to use my sister's money to pay for 2 homes while she slept on a mattress without sheets?" Jessica had no answer for that. "The credit card debts," Robert continued. "How much are we talking about?" 20,000, Michael murmured from the floor. 20,000 galers, Robert repeated. "And how did you accumulate $20,000 in debt?" Silence was the answer. But I knew the answer. I had seen it with my own eyes during these months. The expensive clothes they wore, the expensive restaurants from which they brought leftovers. Michael's new watch shining on his wrist. The designer purses Jessica collected the weekend trips they took while I stayed alone at home. All that had been with my money. The doorbell rang and Robert went to answer. Henry entered with his professional briefcase and a serious expression. He was a man of about 50, gay-haired, with glasses, and that quiet but authoritative presence that good lawyers have. Behind him came a woman I did not recognize. She was carrying a medical bag. "Emily," Henry said, approaching my bed with evident concern. Robert explained a little on the phone, but my God, he did not finish the sentence. "No need." My appearance spoke for itself. The doctor, who introduced herself as Dr. Sarah, approached and began to examine me. She took my blood pressure, listened to my heart, checked my eyes and mouth. Her expression became graver with every second that passed. "Mrs. Emily, you are severely malnourished," she said with a professional but worried voice. "Your blood pressure is dangerously high. You have signs of dehydration, and your body mass index indicates severe malnutrition. You need immediate medical attention." "Did you hear that?" Robert said, looking at Michael and Jessica. "Severe malnutrition in a house where $8,000 a month comes in." Henry took a recorder out of his briefcase. "With your permission, Emily, I am going to record this conversation. It is important to document everything that has happened." I nodded weakly. Henry turned on the recorder and began. "It is Thursday, February 22nd. It is 4:30 in the afternoon. Present at Mrs. Emily's residence are Mrs. Emily, her brother Robert, her son, Michael, daughter-in-law, Jessica, lawyer, Henry Davis, and Dr. Sarah Miller." He looked at Michael and Jessica. "I am going to ask you some questions, and I strongly recommend you answer honestly. Everything you say will be recorded and can be used in future legal proceedings." Michael stood up, trembling. "We did nothing wrong. My mother gave us her money voluntarily." "Voluntarily?" Henry asked with a skeptical tone. "Did you ask your mother if she agreed to be left without food, without medication, without furniture? She could ask for what she needed." Jessica intervened with a defensive voice. "It is not our fault if she did not ask. She did not ask." Robert's voice sounded like thunder. "My sister asked you for $20 to buy a birthday gift for her best friend, and Michael denied it. She asked for money for her medications, and you denied it. How dare you say she did not ask?" Henry raised a hand to calm tempers. "Michael, Jessica, I need you to hand over all bank statements for the last 14 months. I need to see exactly where every penny of the $112,000 you received from Emily's pension went." "We do not have to give you anything," Michael said, but his voice lacked conviction. "Technically, no," Henry admitted, "but if you do not cooperate voluntarily, I will file a formal complaint with the prosecutor's office tonight for elder financial abuse, misappropriation, and possibly fraud. And then federal investigators will review your accounts with a court order, and I assure you, they are much less polite than I am." I saw Michael and Jessica looking at each other, communicating silently. Finally, Jessica sighed. "Fine, we will show you the statements." She took out her phone with trembling hands and began opening apps. Robert and Henry approached to see the screen. What they saw left them silent for a long moment. Then Robert whispered, "My God, what?" I asked with a weak voice. "What did you see?" Robert turned to me with an expression of absolute disbelief. "Sister, there are transfers from your account to a business account in the name of Jessica Mendes. A business account. She opened a business with your money." Robert's words fell on me like stones. A business. Jessica had opened a business with my money. My pension earned, with 42 years of work as a nurse. Endless night shifts, patients I had cared for with my own hands. All that sacrifice had been used to finance the business of the woman who was starving me. "What kind of business?" Henry asked with a controlled voice while taking notes in a notebook. Jessica did not answer. She kept her gaze fixed on the ground. Her previous confidence had disappeared completely. It was Michael who spoke with a barely audible voice. "A clothing boutique?" Jessica always wanted to have her own store, a boutique. Robert repeated slowly, as if processing something incomprehensible. "You left your mother without eating, without medication, without furniture, selling her family memories so your wife could fulfill her dream of owning a clothing store." "It was not like that," Jessica protested, looking up for the first time with eyes bright with tears. "I was going to pay back all the money when the business started generating profits. It was a temporary investment." "An investment." Henry's voice was dangerously soft. "Did you ask Emily for permission to invest her entire pension in your personal business?" Jessica shook her head. "Michael said she would agree, that she would understand." "Michael said," Henry repeated, noting meticulously. "But you never asked Emily directly if you could use her money to open a business in your name." "No," Jessica admitted with a broken voice. Henry turned to Michael. "And you? Did you tell your mother you were using her entire pension to finance your wife's business?" Michael did not answer. His silence was all the answer we needed. Robert began to review more details on Jessica's phone, sliding his finger across the screen with an increasingly dark expression. "Here is a transfer of $3,000 for initial inventory, another of $2,500 for store renovation, $1,200 for logo and brand design, $4,000 for imported merchandise. Period." With every figure he mentioned, I felt as if needles were being stuck in my heart. "And here," Robert continued, "there are personal purchases. A dress for $800, shoes for $600, a purse for $1,200, dinners at restaurants costing $200, $300 a night." He turned to Jessica with a look of absolute contempt, while my sister ate watery beans once a day. "You spent $1,200 on a purse." Jessica began to cry openly. "I needed to look good for the business. Clients judge by appearances. If I did not look successful, no one was going to buy in my store." "And my mother?" I asked with a voice I barely recognized as mine. A voice full of pain so deep it seemed to come from the center of the earth. Didn't she need to look good? Didn't she need to eat? Didn't she need her medications? Jessica could not look me in the eye. "I thought Michael said you had savings, that you had other accounts." I laughed. It was a bitter, broken laugh. That hurt my chest. Other savings. Where was I going to have other savings? I spent all my savings on Michael's college, on his wedding, on helping them when they needed it. My pension was all I had, and you knew it. Henry continued reviewing the phone, now with a tablet where he was doing calculations. According to what I am seeing here of the $112,000 that entered this house in 14 months, approximately $93,000 were transferred directly to Jessica's accounts for her business and personal expenses. $93,000. The figure was so big I could not process it. And the other $19,000? Robert asked. Michael cleared his throat. We paid for the previous apartment for 6 months until the contract ended. That was like $1,500 monthly, $9,000 in total. Then there are the credit card debts we had before moving here. We were paying little by little with my sister's money while she was starving. Robert's voice trembled with contained anger. Do you have any idea what you have done? Do you have the slightest idea? Dr. Sarah, who had been taking my vital signs again, intervened. Mr. Robert, I need to take Mrs. Emily to the hospital immediately. Her condition is critical. She needs intravenous hydration, supervised nutrition, and a complete evaluation. If she does not receive urgent medical care, she could suffer a collapse. No, I said with a firm voice. Despite my weakness, all eyes turned to me. I am not going to the hospital until this is resolved. I need to hear it all. I need to know the whole truth. Robert knelt beside my bed and took my hand. Sister, you are very sick. I know, I replied, but I have been sick for months and survived. I can hold on a few more hours. I need to know what else you hid from me. My brother looked at Dr. Sarah, who nodded reluctantly. Okay, but no more than an hour. After that, I insist on taking her to the hospital with or without her permission. Henry took more documents out of his briefcase. Michael, Jessica, I need you to sign a sworn statement where you admit to having received the money from Emily's pension and how you spent it. This statement will be used to determine the next legal steps. And if we do not sign, Michael asked, with a last attempt at defiance, then I proceed immediately with the criminal complaint. Henry replied without emotion. And believe me, you will want to resolve this in the civil realm before it becomes a criminal case. Elder financial abuse is a federal crime. We are talking about years in prison, not fines. I saw the color disappear from Michael's face. Jessica sobbed uncontrollably. We did not mean to hurt her, she cried. We just wanted to get ahead. We just wanted a chance. At my sister's expense, Robert asked with a hard voice. That was your chance, starving a 69-year-old woman. Enough, I said with more strength than I thought I had. I want to ask questions. Everyone fell silent and looked at me. Michael. My voice trembled, but I needed to know. At any moment during these 14 months, did you stop to think about me? When you saw me getting thinner and thinner, weaker, when you sold your father's sofa, when you denied me money for medications, did you, at any moment, think this is wrong? My son could not hold my gaze. Jessica said, it was temporary. That soon everything would be fine, Jessica said. I repeated, Michael, you are my son. You have known me since the day you were born. I held you in my arms. I fed you when you were hungry. I took care of you when you were sick. And you could not see that I was hungry, that I was sick, Tears began to roll down Michael's face. I am sorry, Mom. I am so sorry. You are sorry. My voice rose despite my weakness. Are you sorry you got caught? Or do you feel sorry for doing this to me? Michael dropped to his knees beside my bed. I feel sorry for failing you. I feel sorry for hurting you. I did not want to. Things got out of control every time I wanted to stop. Jessica said, just one more month, just a little more money, and then we could pay you back everything with interest. I turned to Jessica. And your boutique, is it working? Is it generating those profits you were going to use to pay me back my money? Jessica shook her head between sobs. It went bankrupt 2 months ago. It did not work. I lost everything. The silence that followed was absolute. Robert was the one who spoke. So you not only stole $93,000 from my sister, you lost it. All that money, all that suffering for nothing. Henry closed his notebook with a dry snap.
Fine. Now that we have all the information, these are the next steps. Michael and Jessica are going to sign an agreement where they recognize the debt of $93,000 to Emily. You are going to establish a payment plan that will be legally supervised. Furthermore, you are going to vacate this house immediately.
Immediately? Michael asked with a high-pitched voice.
Where are we going to go? That is not my problem, Henry replied coldly. You should have thought of that before stealing from your mother. You have 2 hours to pack your personal things and leave the property. If you do not do it voluntarily, I will call the police and remove you by force.
Michael looked at Robert pleadingly. Uncle, please, we are family. Robert looked at him with an expression I will never forget. It was not anger. It was deep disappointment, sadness, and something that looked like pity.
Family does not do this, Michael.
What you did has no name. Michael tried to approach me, but Robert stepped between us.
No,
my brother said with a firm voice.
You have done enough damage.
My son stopped with hands extended towards me in a gesture of plea.
Mom, please forgive me.
I love you. I know I made a terrible mistake, but I am still your son. You cannot leave me on the street. His words should have moved me for 69 years. Michael had been my reason for living, my purpose, my everything. But as I looked at him standing there crying and pleading, I felt something I never thought I would feel for my own son. Nothing. The love I had felt for him all my life had evaporated, consumed by months of hunger, humiliation, and betrayal. You left me to starve in my own house, I said with a broken but firm voice. I did not leave you on the street. I gave you a roof, food, all my money, and you decided my life was worth less than a clothing boutique.
Mom,
I can fix it, Michael insisted desperately. I will get a job. I will pay you back every penny. Just give me a chance. A chance, I repeated with a bitter laugh. I gave you 14 months of chances. Every day I woke up hungry. Every night I shivered with cold because you had sold my blankets. Every time I asked you for something and you denied it, those were chances for you to do the right thing, and you never did. Jessica approached too, falling to her knees in front of me. Emily, I know what we did was wrong, terribly wrong. But please, do not leave us with nothing. Michael is not going to survive on the street. He is your only son, your only family. I am her family. Robert intervened with a hard voice.
I am the one who came to save her when her only son was killing her slowly.
He turned to Jessica with contempt.
And you have no right to ask for anything.
You orchestrated all this. You convinced Michael to steal from his own mother to finance your business fantasies. It is not true, Jessica protested weakly. Michael also wanted the business. He agreed with everything. Michael looked at her with an expression of betrayal. What no? You were the one who insisted on using my mother's money. You said it was just a loan that she would never know because we were going to return it before she noticed. You never stopped me, Jessica shouted, standing up. You also spent that money. You also bought expensive clothes and dined in luxury restaurants while your mother was dying of hunger. And there it was, the ugly and naked truth. They were blaming each other, destroying their own marriage before my eyes. A part of me should have felt satisfied seeing their relationship crumble, but I only felt a deep and painful emptiness. This was my son, the baby I had held in my arms, the boy who had told me I was the best mom in the world, the young man I had been so proud of. At what moment had he become this stranger capable of such cruel crimes? Henry hit the table with his fist, silencing the argument. Enough. I do not care who had the idea or who is more guilty. Both are equally responsible before the law.
Now, are you going to sign these documents, or am I going to call the police? Decide. He took several papers out of his briefcase and placed them on the only table left in the room. Michael and Jessica approached, slowly reading the documents with expressions of defeat. This says we have to pay $1,500 monthly until the full debt is covered. Michael read with a trembling voice. That is more than 5 years of payments. You should consider yourself lucky. Henry replied without sympathy. The alternative is jail. And believe me, in there, you won't be able to pay a single penny.
But I do not have a job.
Michael protested. How am I going to pay $1,500 a month without a job?
That is your problem. Not mine, said Henry. You will get a job. 2 jobs if necessary. 3. I do not care, but you are going to pay back every penny you stole from your mother. Jessica took the pen with a trembling hand. And if we cannot pay some month, what happens then?
then the agreement is automatically annulled, and I proceed with criminal charges. Henry explained, "This document is your only chance to avoid prison. I suggest you take it seriously." I saw Jessica and Michael exchanging looks of despair. Finally, both signed the documents. Henry reviewed them carefully, making sure every page was signed and dated correctly. "Good," he said, putting the documents in his briefcase. "Now, according to the terms you just signed, you have 2 hours to leave this property. You can only take your personal belongings. Nothing belonging to Emily. None of the furniture, even if only 3 chairs and a table remain. None of the appliances, just your clothes and personal items." Michael looked around the almost empty house with a lost expression. "Where are we going to go?" "You can go with friends, with relatives, look for a shelter, rent something." "It is not my problem," Robert replied. "You should have thought of that before." Jessica began walking towards her room, sobbing. Michael followed her with slow, defeated steps while they packed. I heard their voices arguing in the room, blaming each other, crying. Part of me wanted to feel pity, but every time that feeling began to surface, I remembered the nights of hunger, the dizziness from lack of food, the humiliation of having to ask for $20 and being denied. I remembered watching them eat while my stomach growled. I remembered every little cruelty, every lie, every moment they chose their comfort over my survival. No, I did not feel pity. I felt justice. Robert sat next to me and took my hand. "Sister, when they leave, I will take you directly to the hospital. Dr. Sarah says you need at least a week of hospitalization to stabilize." "I do not want to stay here afterwards," I whispered. "This house has too many bad memories now." "I know," Robert replied with a soft voice. "That is why when you get out of the hospital, you will come live with me in Chicago, at least temporarily, until you recover completely. Later, if you want to return here, we will renovate your house. Fill it with life again. But first, you need to heal." Tears began to roll down my cheeks. "Thank you, Robert. If you had not come," he interrupted me. "I am always going to be here for you. You are my sister. I should have come sooner. I should have insisted more when you did not answer my calls. I feel guilty for not realizing what was happening." "It is not your fault," I said, squeezing his hand. "They were very careful. Every time I tried to ask for help." Michael was nearby. Every time someone called, he answered and said I was fine. He isolated me completely. Henry, who had been reviewing more documents, looked up Emily. "There is something else I need to tell you." When I reviewed the transfers in more detail, I found something worrying. There are several documents that were digitally signed in your name, authorizations for large transfers, changes in insurance beneficiaries, a power of attorney. My heart stopped. Power of attorney? I never signed any power of attorney. "I know," said Henry with a grave expression. "That is why I am going to need you to file a formal complaint for forgery of documents. Michael forged your signature on several important legal documents.
That is an additional crime much more serious than financial abuse. What documents? I asked, feeling nauseous. A power of attorney that gave Michael total control over all your accounts and financial decisions. A change in your life insurance policy where Michael and Jessica are now the sole beneficiaries instead of the distribution you had previously between Michael Robert and some charities, and an authorization to sell this house if necessary. The words fell on me like hammer blows. They were going to sell my house. Henry nodded. There was a preliminary request with a real estate agency dated 3 weeks ago. They were preparing the ground to sell it. They were probably going to tell you it was necessary for some invented medical or financial emergency. I felt like the whole world was crumbling around me. They had not only robbed me, they had not only left me to starve, they had planned to take everything from me. My house, my life insurance, my complete autonomy. They would have left me literally with nothing. And how much would they have gotten for the house? Robert asked, with a voice trembling with contained fury. According to the preliminary appraisal, they requested approximately $250,000, Henry replied. Robert stood up so abruptly the chair fell backward. "Michael!" he shouted, heading towards the room where my son was packing. Henry and I followed him, me leaning on the walls because my legs could barely support me. Robert opened the door abruptly and found Michael folding clothes into a suitcase. "You were going to sell your mother's house," Robert roared. "You were going to leave her literally on the street." Michael turned pale. "We were just exploring options. We never would have done it without her permission." "Liar!" Robert shouted. "You forged her signature on legal documents. You changed her life insurance all without her knowledge or permission." Michael began to cry again. But these were not tears of repentance. They were tears of panic of someone watching their world crumble. "Uncle, please." I was desperate. Jessica said we needed more capital to save the business. I thought if we sold the house, we could buy Mom something smaller and use the difference to invest. She was going to be better off. "I swear." "Better off," I repeated with a voice I did not recognize as mine. "Better off without a roof, yes. The house your father and I bought with so much sacrifice." I approached Michael. Every step a monumental effort. "Look what you did to me," I said, pointing to my emaciated body. "This is what being better off means under your care. I weighed 132 pounds when you moved here. Now I weigh 92. You took 40 pounds from me. Almost all my strength, my dignity, my will to live. And still you plan to take more." Michael fell to his knees in front of me, crying uncontrollably. "Mom, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I never wanted to hurt you. I lost my way. I lost sight of what was important. Please give me another chance. I can change." I looked at him for a long moment. I saw the broken man in front of me.
But I also saw the child. He had been the son I had loved with every fiber of my being. And in that instant, I made the most difficult decision of my life. "No," I said with a firm voice, despite the tears rolling down my cheeks. "I am not going to give you another chance. Not because I do not love you, Michael, but precisely because I love myself. And for the first time in my life, I am going to choose me." I saw his eyes open with shock, as if he could not believe what he was hearing. For 69 years, I put everyone before myself. Your father, you my patience, everyone. And when I most needed someone to put me first, my own son chose money. He chose a clothing store. He chose his comfort over my life. "Mom, please," Michael pleaded, extending his hands towards me. I took a step back. "No, it is over. You signed the documents. You are going to pay your debt. And after that, I do not want to see you again." The words came out of my mouth with a clarity that surprised me. Michael stood paralyzed. "Never. Are you never going to want to see me again? I do not know," I admitted honestly. "Maybe someday. When I have healed, when I can think of you without feeling this pain in my chest. But right now, every time I look at you, I see months of suffering. I see every lie, every manipulation, every moment you chose to hurt me. I cannot have that in my life. Not if I want to survive." Robert approached and put his hand on my shoulder, giving me strength. "Sister, the doctor insists we must go to the hospital now." I nodded. Yes, it is time. I turned one last time towards Michael and Jessica. "You have an hour to leave. When I returned from the hospital, I do not want to find any trace of you here." Jessica, who had been silent all this time, finally spoke. Her voice was barely a whisper. "Emily, I know I do not deserve your forgiveness, but I want you to know I am going to spend the rest of my life regretting what I did. You did not deserve any of this." I looked her straight in the eyes. "You are right. I did not deserve it, but it happened. And now both of you will have to live with the consequences of your decisions, just as I will have to live with the scars you left me." Robert helped me walk towards the door. Every step was an effort, but it also felt like a step towards freedom. Dr. Sarah waited for me in the living room with a wheelchair. "It is better you do not walk anymore for now," she said with gentle professionalism. I sat in the chair feeling how fragile my body had become. As Robert pushed me towards the exit, I heard Michael's sobs behind me. I did not look back. If I looked back, maybe I would break. And I had already broken enough. The hospital was a whirlwind of exams, blood tests, intravenous fluids, and worried doctors. I was hospitalized immediately in intensive care. My blood pressure was dangerously high. My kidneys showed signs of damage from prolonged dehydration. I had severe anemia and critical vitamin deficiencies. Mrs. Emily, the doctor in charge, told me a man of about 40 with a grave expression. You arrived just in time, 1 or 2 weeks more in those conditions, and you probably would have suffered multiple organ failure. The words hit me hard. I had been so close to death, so close, and my own son had been the one who took me to that edge. I spent 9 days in the hospital. Robert was with me every day, bringing me flowers, reading me books, simply holding my hand when nightmares woke me in the middle of the night. Susan came to visit me crying when she saw my condition. Emily, I should have insisted more, she said between tears. I saw something was wrong, but I did not press enough. It is not your fault, I assured her. They were very careful. They isolated me systematically. But now, I am free. During those days in the hospital, Henry worked tirelessly on my case. He filed a formal complaint for elder financial abuse, forgery of documents, and misappropriation. He also initiated the process to reverse all forged documents. The power of attorney, the change in life insurance, everything. There is good news, he told me during one of his visits. The bank is cooperating completely. They are going to review every suspicious transaction of the last 14 months, and given that we found evidence of signature forgery, it is possible we can recover part of the stolen money. How much? I asked without much hope. It is difficult to say. Maybe $20,000 or $30,000. The rest was spent in cash or on the business that already went bankrupt. But something is better than nothing. Robert took care of my house while I was hospitalized. He hired a deep cleaning team, bought new furniture, filled the pantry and refrigerator with food. When you return, I want you to find a home, not an empty house full of painful memories, he explained to me. But I had already made a decision. Robert, I want to sell the house. I told him one afternoon while being fed by a nasogastric tube because my stomach still did not tolerate solid food. It has too many ghosts now. I want to start over somewhere else. My brother nodded understandingly. Where would you like to live? With you, I replied. If you will have me, I want to go to Chicago, start a new life far from here, far from everything that happened. Robert smiled with tears in his eyes. Nothing would make me happier, sister. My house is your house. That decision filled me with a peace I had not felt in months. It was the closure I needed. Michael tried to visit me in the hospital twice. Both times he was denied entry. I had given specific instructions that I did not want to see him. He left letters at the reception that Robert collected, but I did not read. Do you want me to read them to you? My brother asked me. No, I replied firmly. Maybe someday, but not now. In the 3rd week after that terrible day, I was discharged. I had gained 9 pounds. My vital signs had stabilized, and although I was still weak, the doctors were confident I would recover completely with time and proper care. Robert took me to my house one last time to pick up some personal belongings before moving to Chicago. When I entered, I barely recognized the place. The new furniture, the freshly painted walls, the framed photographs in places of honor. My brother had transformed the empty house into a home again. But I knew it was no longer my home. My home was where I felt safe, valued, loved, and that place was now next to Robert. I packed only the essentials: photographs of Richard, some memories from when Michael was a child and was still innocent, my nursing certificates, letters from grateful patients. I left behind everything that tied me to pain. Henry took care of putting the house up for sale and establishing a trust to manage the money from the sale and the payments Michael and Jessica owed me. "You won't have to worry about anything," he assured me. "I will supervise everything and send you monthly reports." 3 months later, already installed in Chicago in Robert's house, I received news. The house had sold for $230,000. With that money and my recovered pension, I had financial security again. Michael and Jessica had made their first payment of $1,500, although according to Henry, they did it just 1 day before the deadline. It is going to take them 6 years and 2 months to pay the full debt if they keep the payments constant, Henry informed me.
And if they do not pay, I asked, then I proceed with criminal charges as the agreement establishes. Slowly, I began to rebuild my life. I made new friends in Chicago, women my age who met in a book club Robert helped me find. I started therapy with a psychologist specializing in trauma and family abuse. The sessions were difficult, painful, but necessary. What you experienced is called financial abuse and extreme neglect. The doctor explained during a session, "It is a form of violence as real as physical violence, and it was not your fault." Those words freed me from the guilt I had been carrying. It had not been my fault. I had been the victim, not the responsible one. I gained weight gradually until reaching 128 pounds, a healthy weight for my age and height. My hair, which had started to fall out from malnutrition, grew back. The deep wrinkles of worry on my face softened. I started smiling again, laughing, living. 1 year after that terrible day when Robert knocked on my door and saved my life, I was sitting on the balcony of his apartment in Chicago, drinking coffee and watching the sunrise. The sun painted the sky in coral and gold colors, and I felt something I had not felt in a long time. Hope. My phone rang. It was a message from Henry. Michael completed 12 consecutive payments. Total paid so far, $18,000. $75,000 to go. I read it without feeling anything in particular. Neither satisfaction, nor rage, nor sadness. Just acceptance. Michael was paying his debt literally and figuratively. In the message, there was also a note.
Michael asks if he can write you a letter.
He says he is in therapy, and that part of his recovery process is to apologize appropriately. I thought about it for a long time. Finally, I replied, "You can send the letter. I will read it when I am ready." And I meant it someday. When my heart was completely healed, maybe I could read his words.
Maybe I could even forgive him. But that day had not yet arrived, and it was okay. I had all the time in the world. Robert came out to the balcony with 2 cups of hot chocolate.
What are you thinking, sister?
He asked, sitting next to me. I smiled. How lucky I am to have you. How grateful I am to be alive. All the beautiful things I still have ahead of me. My brother hugged me, and I am grateful you survived, that you are so strong. We sat there, watching the sun finish rising, painting a new day full of possibilities. I had lost much. Money, furniture, the relationship with my son, the innocence of believing that family love was unconditional. But I had gained something more valuable. I had found myself. I had discovered I deserved respect, dignity, love, that I did not have to accept abuse from anyone, not even from my own blood. The morning breeze caressed my face, and I closed my eyes, breathing deeply. For the first time in over a year, I felt free. Completely, wonderfully.